first want to say how important I think, and I know it's already been said, that this group coming together, how important it is to our efforts. And Mayor Wharton's Port Authority Director is the one that I think was alluded to earlier that I was talking to just before Colin called me, and he was his really. When he's the first one that told me this idea, said the mayors should get together as a collaborative effort, and and strengthen numbers. And so it is such an important organization, and encourage all your fellow mayors on the river to join up with us. It was said this, I think, last night that that mayors have a unique job. It's been said several times, but I'll restate it, that the most effective form of government is your municipal government. We're closest to the people. They can grab us by the nape of our neck, and say, I want this done, that done. And so consequently, we, I think, can have a big impact on our senators and congressmen, because you know who they come to when they want to come to your town and get votes. At least they do me. They come to the mayor and want me to carry them around town and all that, so you get to know them. So we can have a big influence and help our communities and help this great river and the whole area. So with that said, for those of you who have already forgot my name, I'm Dickie Kennemore, and I'm the mayor of Osceola, Arkansas, and it's a small town about 35 miles upriver from Memphis, right on the Mississippi River. And it is a pleasure for me to be asked to introduce our speaker today. And as mayors along the Mississippi River, conservation is paramount in preserving the recreation industry, support of the waterfronts. Conservation is also critical in keeping our water clean to drink. And which brings up a point there that I probably should make, that we've got this award for the cleanest and best drinking water, but I won't. It seems like that's not real important, not a real unique thing, so I'll pass by on that. And the use of irrigation. And I want to say here too that the river that's not been brought up. That's one point that many people don't, or maybe doesn't, or is not affected by. But years ago, my mentor, Mr. Harold Ollendorf, if any of you knew him, he was a big farmer. His farm was where the mechanical cotton picker was developed by International Harvester. And he told me once that our high water table in Mississippi County would become more valuable than oil, because we would be able to draw it up and irrigate our crops. And every year, the Mississippi River replenishes that aquifer. And across the Crowley's Ridge, they pump it down for rice. Ours, we pump it down for corn and rice and all that. Back up it comes, and we have a high water. It'll seep out of the joints in the street, and so it is a very valuable asset, and it's an indirect consequence or asset of the Mississippi River that has not been discussed so far yet, but it's a benefit that we have in Mississippi County. The conservation is an essential land management tool that allows our cities a richer coexistence with our waterways along the Mississippi River. There is no federal entity involved in more conservation work than the Natural Resources Conservation Service, the NRCS. It commands one of our federal government's most important conservation program, the $2.1 billion a year Conservation Reserve Program. And in Osceola, we are in the middle of the NRC's largest focus area that is part of the Mississippi River Basin Healthy Watershed Initiative, covering 13 states. The Watershed Initiative is a top priority of the NRCS due to the water quality concerns, primarily related to the effects of nutrient loading on the health of local water bodies and eventually to the Gulf of Mexico. And as stated, more than 50 cities obtain their drinking water directly from the Mississippi River. Water quality is paramount. The reality also implicates us mayors as partners in this endeavor. Thus, I'm very pleased that we are joined by the man at the head of the
certain members of Congress who did not like this idea at all. They liked this everybody get a little bit stuff. And we still do that as well, too. But just specifically on water quality, these are the water quality initiatives that we have going on. And again, you're the big player in this. In the Mississippi River, you know the value of it. And instead of talking, well, yeah, we'll talk about the problems. This is any cropland field in Iowa, Missouri, Illinois, Minnesota. And what's attached to the water that runs off this cropland field? Everything we put on it. And it's collecting in a place, and it's running south, and it's coming out right down here. This is the Gulf of Mexico. What's that red area? Some say Hypoxia, some say the dead zone. One's politically correct, one's more honest. But if you've never seen, you know, the nutrient-rich water comes down there, you get these huge algae blooms, and everything on Earth requires oxygen. And when these algae grow, they suck the oxygen out of the water, and this is what's happening under the water. There is no oxygen for the life there. So I'm not going to talk about this problem anymore. I'm going to tell you, we're going to take a little tour around pieces of the country, and we're going to show you what we're doing about it. I'm going to show you a series of before and afters, because I am firmly convinced we can fix this problem, and we can do it in harmony with agricultural production. We can have a quality environment, and we still meet the production needs of our country. This is a cropland field off of corn, classic gully erosion. That's what it looks like today. This is an abandoned poultry house. Our programs, we can come in here, dismantle these things, grind up the wood, incorporate it in the soil, reseed the areas. We can take care of these issues. No need to tell you what the stuff in the foreground of this is. It's what it looks like today. This is a direct runoff from a dairy going into a water tributary today. And one of the things we're trying to do, you notice the plants in the foreground, we're trying to get native, sequentially blooming species there so we can provide habitat and food for our pollinator species, because 1 out of every 3 bites you take today is directly attributable back to a pollinating species. So we're trying to help those little guys out as well. Another issue, cows grazing right up to the creek and doing other things in there. That's what it looks like today. Can anyone tell me what these white tubes are? What? Tree protectors? Oh, no. These are actually nuclear-powered cow pie methane flares. I'm just messing with you. They are tree protectors. I was going to try to do our part for, you know, global warming too. Yeah, okay, I'm sorry. It sounds better that way. This is really a cool one. This is an orchard guy who really wanted to take advantage of pollinators to help him with his orchard to make sure his apples and peaches and stuff. So he wanted some the attractants for pollinators. This is Michigan. This comes into your part of the world. You see the cows are all messed up down there, eroded pasture. Now we have a heavy use area. It's reseeded. Much better for the environment. Better for the producer as well. This is a Superfund site, chock full of cadmium and every other heavy metal running off of there. Minnesota, farming right up against the creek. Put a little buffer in there. Put some space in there. Looks like that today. Pretty common barn lot scene. You've seen these before. Looks like that today. And I'm not doing this. Okay. I want to show you some new technology. This is a sensor. It's called Greenkeeper. This thing fires 60 times a second, and on the fly, as the farmer moves across the field, it's reading the chlorophyll level in the plant, and it's adjusting your nitrogen and phosphorus to just what that plant needs. It can adjust your nitrogen and phosphorus once per second as you move. So we're going to get much more precise application of fertilizers. This is an interesting experiment. These cages are filled with slag. It's a steel slag. It's a byproduct, waste product of manufacturer's steel. The pond you see catches the runoff from 4 poultry houses. It is chock full of phosphorus. And we're finding out this steel slag just absorbs this stuff like crazy. We're getting 80–90% reduction in the phosphorus that's leaving this little pond. This could have tremendous application for us for water quality purposes. Another thing is these little bowling alleys. It's black plastic with a mesh screen. There's actually a solar pump in the irrigation ditch that's next to this, and it's pumping the water into these down these raceways, and this algae is just eating up the nitrogen that's in that water. And we think we're probably quite a ways from this, but we believe we can burn this stuff for fuel. I want to talk to you about one of the things we really think is the solution. We've talked about a lot of nutrient management, some of the things on the ground. Soil health, we believe, is going to be absolutely critical to helping agriculture meet production needs and do it in an environmentally healthy way. Healthy soil, we've gotten away from it. You know, we have the power now to go corn, 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 and you kill everything that stops you from growing corn, corn, corn. We've got to get back to covering the soil, thinking of the life forms underneath, and I'm going to show you what the impact could be. This is being a farmer-led thing. These guys are doing it. This Dave Brandt in Ohio. Right now, he is averaging about 120 bushels per the acre. His neighbors are less than 40 because he's used soil health practices. This guy down on the lower left, Gabe Brown, it's been 15 years since he's put any commercial fertilizer on his field. He's reduced his chemical inputs by 75%. They're all over the country. This is what the problem was. This soil is naked, hungry, thirsty, and running a fever. We have completely changed the ecosystem that we're using to grow our crops. And here's one of the big things. Under a natural system, this same soil would have an organic matter of 4.3%. 17 years of soybean conventional tillage, you're down to 1.6. Water will not infiltrate. The life forms are different. Requires much more inputs in order to make a crop. Cover crops are one of the key things we're going to be pushing. You can see this one. This is from North Dakota. The cover crop, you're not seeing this annual weed growth coming up in the spring. This guy on the right is not going to have to, use a chemical. He's not going to have to use diesel fuel to go in there and kill weeds. And I'm going to show you some of these side-by-sides from the drought. Left is under a soil health system. This was taken the same day, July 11. Across the fence, his neighbor's field looked like that. This is a soybean field. 2 years cover crops, 11 years continuous no-till, vertical till right across the fence. Here's another 5 years of cover crops and across the fence. And by the way, this dog is 8 foot tall at the shoulder. Here's a guy from Missouri. I know there's some Missouri folks here. Mark Brownlee. This is absolutely incredible. Brownlee uses soil health, and he mob grazes his cattle. He'll put them in a short area, just graze the heck out of them, and then move them to another area. This is actually side by side with his neighbor. Now, which one is going to be better for the producer and their ability to produce food for our nation? So one of the things Colin said that you guys wanted to talk about is how can I help? How can we work together more? Well, we have this Mississippi River Basin Initiative. These are our 43 key watersheds. Within those 43 watersheds, we have identified 640 12-digit sub-watersheds that we're working on. We have 123 projects in those 640 watersheds. We have spent this year a total of $222 million of your dollars to work on nutrient reduction and wildlife habitat in those designated areas. And we need partners. If every one of the, I have no clue why this thing is doing this, but it's a good thing I'm almost done. We have an average of 9 partners in every one of these 123 projects, and we would welcome a lot more from you. I got to show you this one. This is not your part of the world. This is over in Washington State. There's a bunch of little communities there. They're concerned about, instead of nitrogen, phosphorus, they're concerned about the temperature of the water because it impacts the salmonids, the trout and the salmon. So they were actually going to be, this one little city was going to be under an order to build a chiller plant for their wastewater so they could cool it down before they put it in the creek. And we funded a little grant, worked with another company, a private entity, to put buffers, creeks along. What they're finding out is they're getting twice the chilling power at a 75% cost reduction. So they're taking some of their city money and they're actually paying farmers to do this kind of stuff. And I think it offers us a tremendous potential. Other ways we can work together, and this is it. You can look at me now. I just thought this was out my back door. I always show these Montana so I remember how much I lost. And by the way, I used to be an elected official just like you. I was a school board member, and I was on there for 6 years, and I still remember out of 6 years the 2 calls I got that somebody said things are okay. Every other one was a problem. Where's that city clerk at? I know she gets a lot of those calls. And I know you guys did too, every pothole, everything. So I really admire what you're doing. Anyway, there's cooperative agreements we can work with you in your cities. There's contribution agreements. If you put $1 in, we put $1 in, we can do a joint project together, and those are non-competitive. We offer a thing called, and Colin will probably give you a summary of this stuff, Conservation Innovation Grants. We have a grant program. Let me tell you about one in the city of Raleigh when Mayor Meeker was there. We did a double match with the Forestry Endowment. We put in $2 million, they put in $2 million, and then they sub-granted it out to 3 cities. Well, Raleigh got $1.7 million of that $4 million, and they started working in their the upper watershed to make sure purchasing land and getting conservation on the water that would run down to them. And they liked it so much, they tried to figure out, well, how are we going to make this sustainable? And what Mayor Meeker did and the city did was they put a little surcharge on the water bill, and it amounts to 40 cents on average a month for the people's water bill, and it gets that city $1.8 million a year, so they have a continuing presence to protect their upper watershed. It's outside of the city limits, but the city is benefiting, so that's an example of how we might work together on some grants. Arkansas, NRCS programs, we believe very firmly in local control. There's no way that I'm going to sit in Washington and try to tell Osceola or Clinton or Dubuque or anybody else what's right for them. It's what's right for you. It's what's right for your community and what works in your area. And we have these things through local soil and water conservation districts called local work groups. I know that there are several Arkansas officials that participate in these local work groups, and you can actually swing where these dollars go in your community. You can prioritize water quality, or water conservation, or wildlife habitat, and literally you can swing millions of dollars and the impact on your area. Also, if you are your city, you've got staff, most of you anyway. We have a state technical advisory committee in every state that makes decisions where the statewide money goes. We're talking about billions of dollars a year that is going to local efforts for conservation. You ought to let your voice be heard, and our door is open. You call your state conservationists to say, my city wants to be a member of the State Technical Advisory Committee. That person better say yes, and if they don't, you better call me and we'll fix it, because we want to hear your voices as well as the local voices. The other thing is, you guys have one of the most incredible powers you have is the power of zoning. And I know this is not going to apply to many of you in this room, but some of you do represent large urban areas. And one of the problems we have is healthy food in some of these food deserts. The city of Cleveland figured out how to access us. And I'll just be real honest with you on how they figured out how to access us. We're an ag agency. We work on agricultural land. City of Cleveland rezoned a bunch of vacant lots as agricultural land. Okay. So we can now work there, and we're working with beginning farmers from the inner city who are now in the Farm Service Agency's computer system as beginning farmers. So now we're offering them, because they're beginning farmers, they get up to 90% cost share. And this year, or this some are already built, But in the city of Cleveland, this year we're going to do 20 of these hoop houses, these high tunnels. They're like greenhouses without heat and electricity. They just use solar. And it's going to be locally produced food for the local community. It'll be jobs, and it'll be in an area where they just don't have access to these things. So your zoning power could be incredible. Last thing, House and Senate Agriculture Committees. It is kind of viewed as like a punishment slot. You put your freshmen on there, and as soon as they get enough seniority, man, they're off to foreign affairs or defense or finance, something with a little pizzazz to it. But if you have some of your members, some of your senators on the Ag Committee, you're looking at an incredible amount of authorities and an incredible amount of money every year that is going across America. My budget, our little budget in, not little, it's big budget, little budget in NRCS is over $4 billion. If you look at the SNAP benefits, that's, I don't know how many gobs of billions that is. But if you really wanted to get into the ag arena, you're going to have the representation on those House and Senate Agriculture Committees. I mentioned Cleveland earlier. Cleveland is represented by a very articulate lady named Marcy Fudge, and she's from inner city Cleveland, and she figured out how to get this done. So if there's ways that you want to work with agriculture and do it in the urban setting, I think you're going to be well suited to have the representation on the agriculture committees. And with that, Colin or Mayor, I'm done. Thank you.
Don't sit down. Don't sit down just yet. Thank you, David, and his brief words here show how important his agency is to the Delta and to the agricultural community and the economy. And that slide that he had that had that yellow spot, well, that's right, my little town is right in the middle of that. They make such a big impact on us that he also kind of made me an important star, because when it was announced that I was going to introduce him up here today, his agency in Washington sent out a press release to the local office, and I got a call from this. Said, "Oh, what's going on? What are you going to do? Were you going to see the chief up there?" And so I asked, and so I asked him to send me a little information. And after his remarks, I just want to add a few things to how your agency in Mississippi County alone. Now remember, this area covers 13 states, and it covers probably 17 counties in northeast Arkansas. This is just Mississippi County soil conservation. And they have 206 active projects presently, which cover 286,000 acres in Mississippi County now. They have 506 active EQIP applications, and some things that they help me directly with is that they provide us aerial photos, historical photos. They work with us and the drainage district on drainage, which directly affects the city. And we have a lot of agriculture either adjacent to or in the city, and they work with us and the farmers on nutrient management, cover crops, reduced management, residue management, land leveling, and the underground irrigation pipelines and structures of water control. So your agency, David, plays a big impact on our farmers, and we appreciate the good job they do, and you've got a good crew down there, so thank you.
We're simply trying to give you the illusion your government cares.
The reason I asked Dave to stay up here with me, we're going to open it up to some questions, and so as you think about your questions, we have a mic right here, and I'd ask you to come forward and speak into the mic. And while you're getting your thoughts together, we had some pre-submitted questions for you, and I'm going to read you one here, and it says, while mayors are considering the questions I have, I got this one. Just last month, NRCS awarded $26 million in conservation innovation grants, 59 grants in 47 states. Some of the grants awarded were for water quality trading markets. Could you explain a little more about those and how they work?
You bet. The innovation grants were what I was referring to, what the city of Raleigh did but we've actually awarded 85 of these in the last few years. And essentially it is how can we establish markets where it pays farmers, it's in their interest to do these water quality savings that's also in your interest. And we just did a big one in the Ohio, can't remember but it's 3 states, Ohio, Tennessee, Kentucky, but it's the first interstate trading system where all 3 states are going to be using the same criteria, and it's going to involve power companies buying credits. There's a whole world of stuff like there on how do you make sure if you're buying a pound of nitrogen, you're getting a pound of nitrogen, and how long is it for, and there's all sorts of things like leveraging. We're trying to figure that out because it could be a super way to really create economic opportunities for farmers and also really help you guys with water quality issues at a much less cost.
Nobody got any questions? Well, I'm going to hit you with another.
No.
Oh.
Have you made any assessment in terms of the pollution that comes down the Mississippi that creates the dead zone that you're referring to? Do you have any assessment of what the balance is between the non-point source pollution, such as agricultural runoff, and the point source pollution? What are the percentages in the aggregate? I mean, obviously it's going to vary from one area to the other, but do you have any studies indicating whose share, who has the greatest share of the problem?
Well, if you look at non-point, okay, 70% of the lower 48 states is owned by private individuals, okay? So we believe that the fate of the environment is going to be made by the men and women who own and operate that land, and we believe in the voluntary incentive-based approach. We did do a survey, but just by sheer volume, if you own 70% of the land, that's where most of your non-point is going to come from. We did an assessment in the upper Mississippi Basin, which is, you know, Minnesota, those kinds of states down there dropping down to Missouri. And we're about ready to, in a couple months, come out with the lower Miss on what's happening there. Basically, the upper Miss, you got 121 million acres, about half of that is cropland. We ran scenarios with conservation, without conservation, and the impact of voluntary conservation right now is about a 50% reduction in sediment. So our sediment problem would be twice as bad if we didn't have conservation. We've got 40% reduction in nitrogen and 29, 30 in phosphorus. But it also told us our biggest remaining problems are really subsurface nitrogen. That is what we really have to focus on, and that's one of the things we think that this soil health. I can't really, maybe USGS or somebody like that could give you a more precise on quantitative percent by sectors, but we're all in there, you know, the subdivisions, the cities, the golf courses, but by sheer magnitude, agriculture is the largest. There's no way around that. That said, we have 9 billion people coming to this world in a couple of decades. We're going to have to increase our production an estimated 60 to 70% to feed those people. And how are we going to do it and still have clean air, clean water, abundant wildlife, and healthy environment to give our kids? So that's one of our challenges. We've got to beef up agricultural production, and at the same time, we have got to diminish and correct our environmental issues. And if you want to figure out who's going to solve this thing, just look to your left and look to your right, but most importantly, look in the mirror, because there is no Calvary. It is going to be us. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm confident we can do it. We can fix these things, and we can fix them in harmony with ag production, and we can fix them without resulting to draconian regulatory measures. I think. I'm pretty sure.
All right, if the parks that are created adjacent to or within a city by private, which include private land, can they qualify for funding from the NRC Wildlife Habitat Incentive?
The Wildlife Habitat Incentive Program in the new Farm Bill is getting absorbed in another program. But to directly answer the question, the answer is no. Prior to the 2008 Farm Bill, we were allowed to accept land in any category. Could be public, could be private. There was a change put in 2008 that said it had to be agricultural land. So we're at this point in time, no. And that's why you guys might want to consider about beefing up your representation on the committees that make these types of decisions.
Any other questions?
I think we're done.
All right.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.